Hello everyone and welcome back to Dawn of War 3. This time it is going to be a 2v2 game, just a bit of commentary on a really cool game I played last night with a buddy. And first off, I'm playing with my good friend SolemnSalmon, who I do believe he has his own YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, I will include links in the description. But yeah, this game was really fun for a number of reasons. First off, the opponents tried a really cool strat that I've actually kind of thought about in the past of using. But it's difficult to get kind of random teammates to do it with you, where you commit to one side of the map only and attempt to pressure through uncoordinated defenses from your opponents, simply because they won't be expecting that. But in addition to this, it was a really fun game of counters. Once we got into the mid-game, I would make one style of unit, and then the opponent would make something that would counter that, and I would make something else to counter their counter. And essentially this happened 4 or 5 times before the game ended. And it was pretty fun to watch, actually. So, first off, let's introduce everyone. I am playing as Eldar in this instance. I have pretty much a classic setup. A bunch of Dire Avenger doctrines, the Hollow Field, the Shield, and the Plasma Grenade. On top of that, the Striking Scorpions, because they are godly with their true damage. On top of the Wraithlord, because I still haven't got him to level 8 for his doctrine. And Wraith Knight Taldir, who I'm actually warming to as a big elite. I think I'm just about figuring her out as to how she works. And here you can see what they're doing. They've already got the warrior portal for the Eldar placed here, which is really annoying because it lets them reinforce easily and make troops really close to the front line. A very effective form of forward base here. So you can see it's both the Space Marine player and the Eldar player kind of reinforcing this. And when I first poked in, I did notice that he was building a listening post, and I knew that without Striking Scorpions coming out for some time, if that gets built, there's no way I'm going to be able to push him off anytime soon. So I dart in, nearly, well not nearly, but kind of attempt to do some damage against his Servitor. And that is why I keep darting in here. I know that I have to take that Servitor out if I can. That's really worth my time doing. So as soon as he kind of thinks I'm retreating, I dart back in, attempt to do some damage, and this third time I do take out the Servitor, which is an absolute lifesaver. As you can see, the listening post was very nearly finished, you know, a few more seconds making it and that would have been done. And my Dire Avengers would have been very unable to do much about that situation. So now I can poke in using my fleet of foot, my plasma grenades and my shields to withstand any damage coming back at me, and also kite all of these meta units and the slow Space Marine units. So this is a really good spot for me, but as you can see on the left-hand side of the map, there are basically no opposing units for Salmon to deal with. So he's playing super defensively, just making a firm anvil-style defense with lots of listening posts. And I do believe he's just making a lot of listening webway gates as well, just to speed up his troops, as he does love to play really sneaky-like. As you can see, getting set up in the stealth cover to make a webway gate hidden there to give his troops a buff, and also to teleport to later in the game. So here you can see the opposing player, they're still committed here. The Space Marine dude has backed off the moment to reinforce, but as we can see, he's coming back in. He actually did not reinforce these particular tactical marines, which is rather strange. But what's stranger is that he's running the extra speedy tactical marine doctrine, which is pretty cool actually, because in 3v3s and 2v2s, I actually feel that that doctrine could be quite relevant in terms of making a bunch of tacticals, upgrading them with plasma, and then just darting around the map as like an ambush squad. That could be actually a viable team-based strategy. Just requires some people to test it. And if you're watching this and you want to test it with some friends, you know, by all means, go ahead. It might actually be decent, I'm not sure. So here you can see, there's so little opposition here that Salmon is able to take the natural resource point all the way deep in enemy territory. As you can see, the enemy base is just in this next section of the map. So yeah, he's able to push in using all of his troops, and now he's outnumbering the opponent's Striking Scorpions, so he, you know, is guaranteed to win this fight. And once he wins this fight, he can then push in and attack the shield generator itself, giving us a much needed boost in economy, given that the opponent has secured this for the entire game, more or less. So now that my Striking Scorpions are also on the field, you know, same timings and all for 2-cost elites, I am able to actually realistically take out his listening post, as I do have a source of true damage, which is pretty cool, to say the least. And you can see how quickly it's going down. You know, it's already nearly half health after just a few seconds of punching it. And you can see the chunks of damage falling whenever they do a crit. And yeah, we actually managed to take out that. Essentially, after this fight, we take out most of these generators, so this is a big win for us. And we even get to pressure his actual warrior portal. So this defensive position he's been playing for the entire game, well, both of them have been playing the entire game, we've actually managed to shove them out of. But this is where things get hairy, with both of their elites coming in to deal with us, and that pretty solid Vortex Grenade from Kill Team Ironmore there, we are pretty much forced back. And the Flamer naturally goes through heavy cover, so yeah, this is kind of an ugly situation for me, but it's definitely not over. I relocate my warrior portal over to a safer position, covered by a listening post, and also just kind of keep a close eye on my troops so that they don't die. And thankfully for me, the Flamer does very little damage to the webway gate that I have positioned here, so that's a slight plus. But as you can see, there's a ton of troops, so much stuff here, so I'm basically facing off. As you can see, there's not much other than those troops on the right hand side, so I'm basically facing off against 2 armies worth of troops. So that's 33 popcap, 33 popcap again, and I've got 20 popcap after that last poor fight. So yeah, not fantastic for me, that is for sure. So what do I do about this? Well, in a second you will see that I go for a different style of fighting. I relocate back to here, since it seems, at least for the moment, that the 2 opponents on my side of the map are going to be playing defensively, just reinforcing, healing their kill team, etc, etc. Building more troops, as you would expect. So here I shove my Banshees into the stealth cover, attempting to be sneaky, but it doesn't really work out because they just throw a grenade, which is, you know, kind of scary. And I'm still playing pretty standard here. He finally gets round to making a push, but honestly, I'm quite happy with how this went, given that I was facing off against 2 armies worth of troops for, you know, a good 7 minutes of the game. Call it 8 minutes. That's not too shabby by any stretch of the imagination. And here you can see it's definitely the vast majority of their armies. There's only a worker over on the left side decapping this point for them. And that's pretty much it. This is their entire force on the map. So if I can do any damage to all of this, then I'll be a very happy bunny. And that is what happens. They get nicely clumped, so I can throw some good plasma grenades, do some good AoE damage, knock back all the damage hitting my striking scorpions, and you can see how much work they're getting in. They're just pulverizing troops left, right, and center. But eventually they do get focus fired down by all those Dark Reapers, and they burn to death. Very sad there, very sad. But yeah, this is the lowest points in the game for me. I quite clearly eventually get, you know, effectively wiped for all intents and purposes by the double push from both their armies, and I'm forced to play super defensive. So at this point I'm trying to figure out what I actually do to counter this. I'll just speed up until this actually happens. And meanwhile, on the other side of the map, James was able to take out the shield generator, which is pretty sick. That gave us a boost in economy. But as you can see here, I figure, well, if he's going super heavy into infantry, then if I just go for a sort of a segue into mass ranger spam, coupled with infantry damage upgrades, as you can see here, I'm making a soul shrine at the same time. Maybe this could have been a bit earlier, but regardless, I'm kind of happy about it. And I just start churning out rangers. So we've seen before in their attacking force, they've got quite a lot of heavy weapons groups. You've got Devastator Marines, who are, you know, they have to set up, they're very slow. You've got Dark Reapers, and they're actually, for the first time, going over to the left-hand side of the map, which is pretty cool. But yeah, they've got a lot of just standard infantry troops, nothing super long range, and those kind of troops are the things that rangers essentially prey on, and also any other sniper unit in the game. You know, the scout snipers basically is just the other one. But yeah, rangers coupled with infantry damage upgrades gives you a really effective way of just bleeding models from your opponent. And this was a very viable strat back in the beta days when there weren't so many elites to choose from, and so Rangers really couldn't get punished in the same way as they can in this day and age. At this point in time, we do have Striking Scorpions who, you know, can easily tear through multiple squads of Rangers, you know, no problem. Also Storm Boys, they mess up Rangers big time. But in the right situation, as you can see here, Rangers still can do a lot of work, especially when you upgrade them with Infantry Damage 1, which, as you can see, I do have. And I'm currently upgrading Infantry Shields 1 as well. But with all of these Rangers, I'm able to very safely bleed models. As you can see, that Devastator squad, I took out, I think, 2 models before they eventually retreated, which is, you know, perfect for me. That's just a free gain in resources over my opponent, because he has to reinforce those. But I also can very safely harass this listening post and its generators without taking any losses. And here you can see I'm sort of rebuilding. If we take a look at the pop cap differences, I've got 49, Salmon has 25, the opposing Eldar has 52, and the opposing Space Marine has 37. So we're clearly still not doing so well, but it's not an absolute stomp just yet. We definitely haven't lost the game at all. It's definitely still all up for grabs. And what was interesting about this, apparently if you're stealthed, AoE damage does not hit you. Who knew? I mean, technically this is piercing damage, so maybe that was why, but yeah, that's an interesting interaction there. But as you can see, with all my long range, coupled with some punch from the Dark Reapers and some vision from the Scorpions, I'm able to just bleed shield and models from all of their units, which is pretty cool. As you can see, I just wiped out the Banshee squad shield, and also I'm just shooting out their models. And you can see how much damage I'm doing. And in the meantime, you can see what I was building in the background. I built a Falcon, because he was going all in on infantry. This is sort of a double down on my Ranger strat, where Rangers are great against other infantry. But Falcons are godly against all tier 1 squads. As you can see, every shot it does a ton of damage, even against these elites. They're just kind of vaporizing models from these Striking Scorpions. As you can see, just vaporizing Banshees. It's going to take out Jane Zar. It's going to take out the Scorpions by itself, coupled with some Ranger Fire, to be fair. And you can see how much damage it's doing. By itself, this single Falcon has single-handedly just gave me the game, which is pretty insane. It wiped by itself 2 elites, multiple Dire Avenger squads, I think a Dark Reaper squad, and a Banshee squad. So, yeah, this was easily the turning point of the match. And if we take a look at the other Eldar player, you can see he's down to 20 pop cap compared to my 45. And yeah, this is where the game really kind of spun out of control for them. So I've still got Rangers, I've still got one of these tasty Falcons, and in the meantime I'm also building a second Falcon because the first one, you know, worked out so well for me. So he kind of mismicros his Gabriel Angelos here, he dives into the turret, and meanwhile my Falcon is just kiting his Gabriel into infinity, and my Rangers are just pew-pewing away. To be honest, my Rangers should probably have just been shooting at his normal squads, as then it would really diminish his ability to actually push forward. But yeah, any damage is good damage. As you can see, his Gabriel is barely fit to go into a fight at this point. So just with some very simple micro from my Rangers, and the choice to upgrade into them before, as we saw like 5 minutes ago, I am able to do a lot of valuable damage here. And now I just return to doing, you know, annoying harassment to his generators. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, whilst all this shenaniganry is going on, Salmon has been able to sneak a webway gate all the way here, which, as you can see on the minimap, is essentially in a visionless area next to their base. So whenever he wants to, he can just sneak a force in, kind of backstab whatever objective he wants, and then sneak back out. So yeah, that's going to be pretty hilarious when we get to the end of the game. So here you can see Rangers still being very useful. But I do have 2 Falcons out at the moment, and I will be building a third one very shortly. And if we take a look at the other Eldar player, he is also going into Falcons, because, you know, to be fair, he saw how effective my Falcon was against his infantry, so getting his own Falcon to take out my massed ranger squads is not a bad idea. That's a fairly good counter, and this is the first sort of... Actually, I'd call it like the second or third level of the counter that we saw this game. So I saw that he was going for mass infantry, so I countered with rangers. He was still going for infantry, so I committed and went for a Falcon, and went for multiple of them. He countered my rangers with his own Falcon, and yeah, the counters will just keep on coming if we watch this game go to its natural conclusion. So I call in my Wraith Lord, and I was sort of debating after this game whether I could have just saved up for Wraith Knight Taldir, and I probably could have, but if we continue watching, you will see that Wraith Lord gets a lot of work done, so I'm actually kind of happy with how this went in terms of calling him in at this time, instead of saving up for the late game. So I'm still making lots of troops, and I start to unlock Shadow Spectres, because Shadow Spectres, coupled with infantry damage upgrades, which I've been getting for my rangers naturally, are basically godly against all forms of heavy armor, which includes Falcons, which includes Dreadnoughts, which includes, you know, all of the big boy elites, such as Wraith Knights, you know, etc, etc. So yeah, once again, another level of counter is introduced, where I go for Shadow Spectres in an attempt to take out his Falcons. And this is not the end of the counter sort of string, as it were. So here we go. The Space Marine player is on this side of the map, but as you can see, my teammate is sort of pushing back in on this side, so I'm able to sort of take advantage of this and push in with some of my things, forcing the enemy team to realize that I am a very real threat and that they can't ignore me, and therefore can't afford to just both go and gang up on my teammate on the west side of the map. So multiple Falcons. If you don't know, I think they do around 60 damage, 78 damage. Call that 80 normal damage, and I'm pretty sure in an AoE the main shot from this cannon, which makes them, you know, that's the reason why they're so good against infantry. They just shred tier 1 units across the board. A very good transition when you get to tier 2 is just hit a sky portal, throw out a couple of Falcons if you have the power, and just watch things die. So as you can see, those Banshees just get murdered, so do the Striking Scorpions more or less, and my Wraith Lord at this point, this was bad micro from me. I kept on clicking on the ground instead of the Scorpions and Chainsaw, but regardless, eventually he gets into combat, and you can see how much damage he does with his armor-piercing blade there, just slugging away at the Falcon, essentially solos a Falcon by himself, just chunks those Dark Reapers as well, and coupled with all this damage here, and you can see I've got some Shadow Spectres out at this point, but more will be coming, and the Rangers, of all things, get the final shot on that Falcon, as it was showing its rear to them, and it does have weak rear armor. So yeah, this was basically where I finally pushed them out of their defensive position on this side, which was so valuable for me long term. So as you can see, I'm able to take out that warrior portal. A bit of a misplay from the Eldar player. I'm sure he could have relocated that to safety if he'd wanted to. But yeah, I've got 3 Falcons on the field. I've got 69 lol popcap, and if we take a look at the opposing Eldar player, he has 17. And that's just from, you know, one good fight, and I'm able to just shut him down completely. And you can see what he decides to go with for his next level counter. He starts making Vipers, which is a pretty decent option. I don't think I actually showed my Shadow Spectres in the last big fight, so he's unaware that I'm going for those, and therefore, if he was aware, I don't think he would go for them, as Shadow Spectres rip and tear and brutally murder all forms of skimmer in this game. Especially with infantry damage upgrades. If we just check what my upgrades are at this point. Yeah, so I've got infantry damage 2, which means that my Shadow Spectres will be doing terrible, terrible things to all things that float and skim around fast, which is what Vipers are. And yeah, so he goes for a counter, not knowing that my previous counter, which I didn't show somehow, actually counters his current counter. And you can see why this game is just so cool to commentate. it's just so interesting the levels of mind games that we're going into. It's not even mind games, it's just counters running into counters and doing terrible things to each other. So, yeah. In the meantime, as you can see, the opposing team has still not noticed this webway gate built by Salmon, so essentially we have a free backdoor into the enemy base whenever we want to. Unfortunately, the opposing teams have been playing very defensively, so we don't feel comfortable yet using that webway gate and showing its position on the map. But you can see they've reverted to their, focus on one side of the map strategy, maybe hoping that if they push me out of the right hand side they can then swing left and take out Salmon from his position. But yeah, a big fight will be hitting the scene fairly soon. And here you can see a Dreadnought hitting the field. He's got slam, etc, etc. Very nice, very nice. And unfortunately for that Space Marine player, I am just continuing to make Shadow Spectres, and they do very solid damage once they get charged up to Dreadnoughts. So yeah, unfortunately for both of those players, I am sort of countering their entire army with these Shadow Spectres. If I can take out their Vipers quickly, then their Dreadnoughts, then whatever heavy army they have left, then my Wraithlord and Falcons can just go to town amongst them. So yeah, this was a very nice point in time for me. So more Shadow Spectres hitting the field. My Striking Scorpions are ready, so I call them in. Not too sure where. Ah, there they are. And you can see what Salmon's preparing to do. As soon as he sees that the opposing teams are getting ready to push on my side, which, you can see there's a massive blob of stuff here and a massive blob of stuff from me. So it's likely that they will push against me at some point. As you can see here, sprinting Tactical Marines. So as soon as he sees them commit to a fight against me, he will then warp in and do terrible objective damage against his turret, and then presumably against the power core.
Our webway assembly shall attain tier 3.
And now we wait. And this is Wraith Knight Taldir from the opposing Eldar player. So if the game had gone on, this would have been a very real danger in some respects. However, fun fact, Shadow Spectres kind of destroy everything big and slow and heavy. And this definitely counts as all of those things. Despite its jump ability, if the rest of its army gets wiped out, and I still have Shadow Spectres, the Shadow Spectres will just never get hit because they're skimmers, and they're quite fast, and this is relatively quite slow, and they can just pew-pew it down into oblivion. So yeah, this really was a weird game where I slightly accidentally ended up countering every big thing he made. The Dreadnoughts, the Vipers, the Wraith Knight, and the big fight starts, and I'm like quickly telling Salmon over a voice chat, okay, they're committing to this fight, go, go, go. And you can see it's a massive fight. One Falcon goes down very quickly. I haven't yet used my Shadow Spectres as I'm sort of waiting for a good target. But as soon as I see these Vipers come in, I refocus them onto the Vipers, and you can see how quickly they take them out. 1 goes down, 2 goes down, 3 goes down, 4 goes down. So that's the Vipers out of the fight, quick as you like. And meanwhile, my Falcon is doing good damage against their Shadow Spectres. And so you can see how naturally Shadow Spectres counter Wraith Knights. Naturally, of course, that shield counters all of their fire, but still, they're doing very respectable damage. If we look at how fast its heavy armor shield is going down, that's kind of ridiculous. But eventually, with all of these Shadow Spectres, I do notice that there is a Dreadnought still in the field, so I refocus them onto a better target. You always want to have your things that are good against certain things. So if you have an anti-infantry unit, you want them hitting infantry, and if you have a super anti-armor unit such as Shadow Spectres, you want them hitting armor. And you can see how fast this Dreadnought is going down. Admittedly, it is against, multiple Shadow Spectre squads, but in the meantime, whilst all that's happening, yeah, the ultimate backstab is occurring. And yeah, they activate their power cores and vulnerability, so this gives them a chance potentially to recall, but it seems that they don't think of that, or they've already used it. And what's hilarious is that they actually broke their armies against my defense. They, with 2 armies, couldn't beat my force, or at the very least, pulled back, which is essentially the same thing when we have this much of an objective lead over them. And that is the game. A really cool match, really fun. I feel like everyone played pretty solid, and it was me countering their units, them countering my units, kind of a back and forth unit battle between us, and then transitioning into them committing to a fight too much, and leading to a really cool Eldar style backstab in the back lines, hitting the main power core. So hopefully this was pretty cool and entertaining. I personally really enjoyed it when I was playing it. And more Dawn of War 3 coverage, be it guides or sort of other gameplay breakdowns, coming up fairly soon for your viewing pleasure. As always guys, thank you for watching, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta!